Good afternoon, beloved community. I'm Melissa Miller, host of the Chosen Heroes, and thank you so much for joining in. And this afternoon, we have a very special guest. Rose Bailey has joined us today. So as always, let's kick it off with the Targeted Justice news and review for this week.
We've asked Grok, why is the CIA so corrupt? The question of why the CIA has been accused of committing crimes is complex, rooted in its history, mandate, and the nature of covert operations. On our news Substack, we've outlined the main reasons often cited for these allegations, drawing on historical context and critical perspectives, while avoiding unverified claims and maintaining a balanced view. Note that the CIA's actions are often debated, with some defending them as necessary for national security and others condemning them as illegal or unethical. Allegations of CIA crime stem from its secretive mandate, prioritization of national security over legal norms, limited accountability, and historical willingness to use extreme measures. While some actions were authorized by U.S. leadership, others, like MKUltra or child sex crime cover-ups, suggest ethical failures. For further details, the Church Committee findings or Human Rights Watch reports are good starting points.
This is an AT&T patent from 2018, discussing the wireless surveillance of brain activity as well as the changing of thoughts and brain function from the cell phone to the brain. They call the human brain the neurological area network from which the neurosignals of the brain are monitored. Both your biological signals from your body area network and your signals from your brain waves are being monitored. What makes up these networks? The nano and microrobots and technologies in the blood are using the human blood as a battery to make vaccinated individuals. That is not even needed with this technology. Your brain waves and your heart electrical system emit a frequency signal which can be decoded and sent to the network and can be routed to another person. Translated, that means your thoughts get read and your thoughts can be sent to someone else via a cell phone. If you weaponize that, any adversary can send their thoughts to your brain. How about someone sending you messages to kill yourself? That is called remote assassination and has been described by CIA and DARPA insider Dr. Robert Duncan as an intelligence assassination program. This is how people get remotely murdered. Get rid of your cell phone. Get instead something like a Nokia TrackPhone, where you can remove the lithium battery. Only if you remove the battery can the tracking no longer occur. You can live without a smartphone, but may not survive this war as yourself with your soul intact with it. Get rid of your smart devices. Any of them can alter and hack you. This data is being monitored by the very AI systems that have announced they want to exterminate humanity. They tell you what their plan is. They have injected the infrastructure for this plan into humanity, which are in government documents. How much evidence do people need until they believe it and take action?
The deep state is at war with the people of the world. There is an important difference between strategy and tactics, especially in the military. Most people have little understanding of these concepts because they have never served in the military. Most analysts agree that the deep state and shadow governments are failing, but they also have little knowledge of what is happening in the background. Military strategy refers to the overarching plan or set of goals designed to achieve long-term objectives in warfare, while tactics are the specific actions or steps taken to implement that strategy in individual engagements. Essentially, strategy is the what and why, and tactics are the how of military operations. The current U.S. government shutdown is driven by a Democrat desire to fund, pamper, and encourage illegal migration. This is an ideology, not a strategy. It will fail. The Democrats continue to promote non-scientific ideologies about gender. How someone chooses to identify is opinion, not science, and it does not require limitations on others' free speech or the First Amendment. Under the U.S. Constitution, no one is required to use your chosen pronouns. The green scam is another ideology. For those that dig deeper, it is an attempt to restrict your use of energy, regardless of its source. It is about control and a restriction of your rights. Watch Climate, the movie, for a detailed analysis. There are numerous leaders, but no one seems to know who is the decision maker. There is no org chart. The unelected bureaucrats of the shadow government may have one, but clearly they are the followers, not the decision makers.
And we ain't backing off or giving up, I'll preach what you taught me. They may have killed a soldier, but that man had an army. This is far more deep than some political parties. And you can't kill freedom, so this one is for Charlie. This ain't the America that all our parents love, but good men try to keep making it great. Pray that God will take care of us, the system is failing us. When good men die for the things that they say, and I can't just be quiet. So I gotta be brave, cause this is America. Lately it's scaring us, but one good man can change it all in a day.
Calling all digital warriors. Repost, like, and share this video on all social media. We're on the lookout for volunteers. You can let us know what your skills are by emailing us at tjustice2@proton.me. Put volunteer in the subject line. If you're looking for more targeted justice content, then go to the following link, which will take you to our channel on Rumble. We have our own branded shirts, cups, and other merchandise at our online store. Buy something for yourself or get a gift. We're always accepting donations. You can do so by going to the following link or sending us a check. The donations are tax deductible, and we're a non-profit organization. Thank you so much for watching this video. God bless. God bless.
Excellent news video this week by Sean. He just continues to just supersede his skills on a regular basis. It's so fun watching him evolve and grow in this. And that all stems from his love for our community and his advocacy to shut this program down. So again, thank you, Sean. Hi, Jerry. Hi, WJ. Hi, AJ. Hi, Nix. Thank you. I see some people that tune in regularly, and I appreciate your support. Now, I'm going to just say a few things before we bring up Rose to the stage. As always, I personally have found such great benefit and relief from Armando's device, the Silent Night. That's why I continue to, give a shout out to him. TargetedSourceLLC.com. He does have a new version available that is amazing. So reach out to him if you have any questions. All right. And as always, Tranquility does an amazing job of organizing all events related to our targeted community. There's so many ways that you can plug in to get that community, people who understand what you're going through. And there's, every day of the week, there is a podcast, there's a teleconference call, there is, TI movie night that she hosts where she hand selects, something valuable for our community, something that we can learn from. So again, check out tievents.org. And I want to mention that there is a fundraiser going on for, Anna Toledo's move to DC. So for those that may not be aware, she is sacrificing her life here in Texas, giving up, being around friends and that support to be in the heart of where everything is going. To, if anyone knows Anna, you know that she is a fighter for this community, and she is a go-getter. So her desire is to be in DC and from November through February, so that she can be close to where all the action is, and just start getting those meetings and spreading the word and being the squeaky wheel that we are not going to lose our voice in this fight. We command that we be heard in this in a peaceful way, of course, but to spread that awareness and to gain the attention. Well, if anybody knows, DC is one of the most expensive places to live, and this fundraising for her to be there these upcoming months is strictly so that she can have a place to stay while during the day she's fighting the good fight for all of us. So if you have the means or ability to donate, any amount helps. There is a funding campaign called Give, Send, Go. Sorry, I'm misreading that. So it's www.givesendgo.com/Toledo. And I have in the center of the screen the page for her that you will know that you're at the right place. So again, there's no one who works as tirelessly, trying to help this community, and she's constantly posting and spreading awareness, and she is sacrificing to be there and to be in front of all of them so that our voices can be heard. So again, if you can, please donate. I'm very excited. We have some very great guests coming up, as I love all of the guests that have been on there. And do you know, it's almost been one whole year of the Chosen Heroes weekly podcast. How time flies. It's been such an rewarding experience. I have learned so much through the guests that have been a part of this show. And again, I encourage you, if you want to share your story, please reach out to me. It's like we're just having a conversation with each other. So I know it can be intimidating to be on air, but I promise you, I will make it the most comfortable experience for you. If you feel inclined to share, please reach out to chosen_heroes@proton.me. So on the 19th, next Sunday, is going to be Sarah Martinez. She is with the Vine Sisters. She has an upcoming virtual conference called Unmasked that she has organized, and I will be participating in that. So you're going to love Sarah. So tune in next Sunday. On the 26th, Melanie Richchen from Ikatar will be joining us. So for our international TIs, you may be familiar with her name and Ikatar. And on November 2nd, Dominic Halpin will be joining us. He is the creator of the documentary Cognitive Liberty, Neuroweapons and the Fight for Brain Privacy. That is available to view now. And he is working on a brand new documentary for our targeted community. And he is going to give us a sneak preview of that with his appearance on The Chosen Heroes. On November 9th, Juliette Engel, who is an author, physician, and an MK Ultra survivor. She is also on the advisory board for Targeted Justice, and she has her own podcast. She will be joining us. So tune in for her appearance. And then on November 23rd, Derek Robinson, who is the president of PAX International, will be joining us too. So amazing support. PAX International and Ikatar are other organizations similar to Targeted Justice who is fighting for our rights and our cognitive rights and our bodily, rights in this violation that has been done against us in this targeting experience. So again, so excited about our upcoming guests and other events. I co-host a teleconference with Jamie Rice. It's the Beyond the Looking Glass series for targeted survivor counterintelligence training. We just had one yesterday. I uploaded the video on my X page if you want to check that out. Polly Tsai, she is the founder and developer of that methodology, and it really helps kickstart and the inner healing journey. So the videos from the past, the counter intelligence and counterterrorism workshop series that we've done together are uploaded on my YouTube channel for The Chosen Heroes. And thanks so much. I appreciate all of your support, and I ask that you subscribe, follow, like, and share content from the Chosen Hero pages. I'm on quite a few. And the X page, the new shorts archive, thanks to Sean, is really great. It's the smaller snippets of the longer podcast with all the wonderful guests that have appeared. So before I bring Rose up to the stage, let me give you an introduction for her. So Rose is a survivor, an advocate, and strategic professional working at the intersection of technology, trauma, recovery, and human rights. She is a second-generation TI whose mother was experiencing the auditory harassment, B2K, and directed energy attacks. Rose was once skeptical of what her mother went through, but now she understands firsthand as being a 13-year victim of the same harassment and torture. She is conscious of how she communicates her targeting experience as a result of her initial viewpoint to her mother's when she shared her own experience. Rose has over 15 years of experience in digital innovation and systems thinking. She brings a unique perspective to the growing movement of targeted individuals. Her advocacy is grounded in both personal lived experience and deep commitment to ethical reform, psychological healing, and survivor-led visibility. Rose is also the co-host for the bi-weekly teleconference Victory Through V2K with Lindsay Penn, and she is part of the targeted justice volunteer group named Team Liberty. So I'm going to bring Rose up on the stage now. Hi, Rose. Thanks so much for joining in today with us. So happy to have you here.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for giving this platform and sharing your voice and experience and bringing so much power together. We are so blessed to have you, and thank you for having me today.
Oh, and you're welcome. And Rose is graciously, if anyone has any questions that they would like to directly, ask Rose, you can email her at pr@targetedhelpnow.org. Again, that's pr@targetedhelpnow.org. Rose has prepared a slide presentation for us today, and she's going to kick off our discussion with a prayer. Rose?
Thank you. Apologies for all of our listeners. I've been getting a cold, sinus cold throat. So patience with me and grace for my communication skills today, but really, really grateful to be here. All right, let's start with our prayer. Heavenly Father, we gather before you today with humble hearts and weary spirits. You are our refuge and our fortress, our God in whom we trust. You are the Alpha and the Omega, the one who sees the end from the beginning, the God who never slumbers nor sleeps. Lord, you know our every thought, our every tear, our every hidden pain. Nothing is concealed from you, not the battles in our minds, not the frequencies that disturb our rest, not the surveillance that tries to steal our peace, nor the targeting that attempts to rob us of our dignity. You see it all, and in your presence we are fully known and fully loved. We cry out to you, Father, as your sons and daughters, those who have been targeted, labeled, harmed, and forgotten by the systems of this world. Yet you have not forgotten us. You say in Isaiah 49:16, see, I have engraved you on the palm of my hand. So today, Lord, we take refuge in the shadow of your wings. We declare in faith that we are not alone and we are not forsaken. Your words tell us in Psalm 91 that no harm will ever overtake us. No disaster will come near our tent, for you will command your angels concerning us to guard us in all of our ways. God, let those angels go before us now into every space where our names have been spoken without our permission, into every room where plans have been made against us, into every moment where our minds have been interfered with. Jesus, you were mocked, falsely accused, tortured, and pierced, not just for our sin, but for our healing, our freedom, our justice. You understand what it means to be unjustly treated. You were targeted too. And we speak in the name of Jesus over our minds, our bodies, our spirits. Let every foreign voice be silent. Let every frequency that is not from you be quieted. Let our minds be renewed, our rest be restored, our emotions be stabilized, and our faith be revived. Holy Spirit, come and fill every room, every space, every device, every frequency, every inch of our lives with your presence. Anoint our thoughts, strengthen our discernment, guard our boundaries, and empower us to stand in truth, not with fear, but with your power, love, and sound mind. We pray for those who have suffered in silence, for those who have been told they are delusional, when in truth they are the front lines of a spiritual and technological battle. Comfort us, comfort them, Lord. Bring people around them who believe them, support them, and uplift them. Let your justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. God, we ask for clarity for science and society to catch up to what so many of us already know, that these technologies exist, that minds have been tampered with, and that human dignity has been ignored. Raise up the whistleblowers, raise up lawmakers, raise up prophets, raise up those platforms and power who will no longer turn a blind eye. We declare now in unity, our minds are not for sale. Our spirits are not programmable. Our identities are not negotiable. We belong to you, Lord, and we choose to forgive even when it's hard. We release bitterness so it does not chain us, but we do not surrender our truth. We will speak, we will share, we will unite, and we will rise. Bless this gathering here today. Let your spirit guide every word, every connection, and every moment. Please protect us physically, emotionally, spiritually, and digitally. As we walk out of this prayer, let us walk with your armor, belt of truth, breastplate of righteousness, shield of faith, helmet of salvation, and sword of the Spirit. We thank you for your mercy. We thank you for being the God who sees, and we thank you for being our deliverer. In the powerful, healing, and victorious name of Jesus Christ, we pray, amen.
Amen. That is a beautiful prayer. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I wanted to, before we get into your presentation content, can you give the audience members, a little, a history of where it all began? So you're a second generation TI. Your mother had experienced it and was sharing, what she was going through with you. And as stated in the introduction, at first you were skeptical of it, but you were very open, hearted to her, and to hear her, confess all of what she was going through in this experience. And then it started to happen to you.
Mm-hmm. I did not connect the dots at all for many years, actually. And so for at least 8, maybe 9 to 10 years, my mother would share with me, and she believed in a lot of things. She felt that she had been visited by aliens. And then very shortly after, she felt that there were these men in black that were invisible, that were harassing her. And she had these thoughts and feelings about what was happening and why they were there, and then moved into, as most of us who experience do in B2K, every conversation we had was involved in her experience and the panic she felt and the stress that she had. So it was part of every conversation we had. And she's always been a free spirit. I've always loved her so much. I sat with her with no shame or judgment, although I did believe that I kept to myself that these were almost, just really unbelievable. But I always listened with patience. And she even shared when she was most scared that she felt like something was coming through her face, the vibrations and pains. And I took her to see Dolores Cannon, and I actually met with Dolores Cannon as well, paid for the trip, and we visited her and we did a hypnosis, both of us. And my mother felt better after that. And she continued to share experiences, but not in the same way. And then, like many in our community, as hers seemed to subside for a while and the conversation stopped to be at the forefront of every communication, like mine, like many, we just don't realize immediately that it was happening. It begins with really unexplained disruptions. And I remember feeling like an energy being or entity was laying on my back while I slept, many sleep disturbances. Then it became paranoia. I believe someone was in my air vents, in my attic. There were strange electronic interferences I felt, and some interpersonal dynamics that were changing. Over time, just the patterns became really undeniable that something was not going on that made sense to me. And the paranoia just seemed to be not of coincidence. It just seemed to be something that was happening to me. And I definitely felt that neighbors and folks around me were involved. I felt that I was being followed, and the paranoia continued to go into that range, and I hired investigators, 2 big firms, to help me find the gang stalking at the time. I will get into my perspective of gang stalking and the psychological experiment that I believe it is. But that's really how it started for me. And when I started sharing these things with my mother, she was really silent. And I believe that she was probably very afraid to communicate. So it was an interesting experience as I started onboarding my V2K and the paranoia of what I thought was gang stalking at the time. So the psychological started, and she has since passed away. God rest her soul, 3 years ago. But during her fight with cancer, she did not want to speak about it at all, and I'm sure she was tortured significantly through it. So we did not actually compare many notes, but my sister and my sister journaled, and we both talked about some of the things. And my mother, I've since found a journal, so I have lots of notes on her experiences, which align with most TIs and their patterns.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear about your mother. My mother, started, to get attacked, when my targeting began in 2012. And I always felt bad about that. But she was, always, someone who understood exactly what I was going through. And unfortunately, she passed away several years ago as well. It's part of the reason why I do the podcast, is because I do it for her, because, she left this world knowing that her daughter was still being attacked.
Yes.
And so it's hard. Wow. And then your experience with Dolores Cannon, who has since, passed. Wow. What an amazing experience to be able to have a session with her. And then you stated that your mother had received some benefit and relief from that session too. That's amazing. I know others carry on her work and techniques with the hypnosis sessions.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have, again, all of the discussion I share with listeners are my personal opinions, and just express those personal opinions. But my targeting actually happened after. Now, I think that I was part of subliminal participation with my mother's targeting, and I was unaware of it, which I'll talk about. But they came to the forefront after visiting Dolores Canning. After I had my hypnosis and visit, they decided to relieve my mother of some of the tactics and torture, and that's when mine really started, when I started to go back and look back at the odd things that were happening to me, these sensations in my body that now I know are only part of the directed energy weapon sensations, and some of the other psychological things that were happening to me happened then, but they were very much in both of our lives. I was just unaware at the time.
And I think that you had mentioned that your mother thought she had visitation from aliens and such, but with these type of programs, I think they try different approaches. So, and it's like they do a mixture of things to try to. It's kind of like that front door entry into it almost, and then it just kind of shifts as as time goes by. At least that's what I've learned. And then my own experience, when mine began, it went through different phases. It started out with one thing, which was like the organized stalking and harassment and the property violation and destruction, and then the voice to soul and directed energy. So I think based on it, just is my understanding, or how I interpret it, I should say, is that depending on how you're assigned out is how what motivations they have or tactics that they use. But we have a lot.
It's very scripted, and the power that we share, and we're going to talk about this, how important it is to share our story, connect with others. That happened through volunteering in my position, and as I joined Team Liberty, and it felt safe to share. I think that we have to remember how important our storytelling is, because to your point, we start sharing the tactics and patterns, start being aware to us. And so within the Team Liberty, I started sharing some experiences in a very safe place, and felt really very vulnerable to share this. But when we did that, we started to see the patterns. And so one of the things that I'll say in the early, I was sharing on one of our Team Liberty calls that, I experienced a script early on in the very beginning of V2K, actually, when they told us that our children were the Antichrist. For example, for me, they said things, they played the entity, they played the devil role, they play that spiritual role. From my mother, they played the alien role. I was already very suspicious, and I really just laughed at them. And I said, well, I guess I will be carrying my child through the gates of hell on my shoulder, and dismissed them. Other moms in the group, when I shared that experience, laughed and cried. We all laughed and cried together, because then we shared the same exact script, some other mothers, where they made them believe their children were the Antichrist or, evil, and did that subliminal that I'll talk about more, where others don't know that they're participating, but they'll cry or laugh out or do something that's timed with something being told to us through our B2K communication. And then we can freak out with that, right? But remember, they want us to freak out. They want us to take action. They want us to feel isolated. And I get the most upset when I read horrid stories of parents who probably were a TI, and they did believe those voices, they did believe those actions, and they took terrible, terrible action and did things by unaliving themselves and their family. I read the news and I see something and I say, that was a TI. And that's when I really break down and cry more for others who didn't reach us, didn't hear, and didn't have the community to share and connect so that they could see the patterns. They could listen to the scripts that we've all actually been played, so that we can take that power away from the V2K, from the torturers, because this is just as you would imagine a POW in a place of war. The torture tactics are very scripted and intentional in their action. And when you share, when you connect, you start to pull that power back. And then they actually shift their tactics, because they're no longer tapping into that trigger. That, with me, I was not at all fazed by them saying my daughter was the Antichrist and I should do these things, terrible things. And they talked about me unaliving myself, which I'm very in disbelief of suicide for religious beliefs and others. And so they didn't continue pressing on those buttons. But others I know, as I've shared that story, they did it for years. They really tried to isolate them from their children and their parents by playing those scripts. And it gets me very upset. So sharing and comparing and being a part of this, what we're doing here, what you and I are doing and others, is so important.
Yes, and we just see more and more instances on the news where you feel that this person was targeted. Like you said, they are acting on what is being, projected at them auditory wise. Kudos for you for not giving, finding the humor and the ridiculous and
Yes.
preposterousness of them saying that your child was the Antichrist. But again, there are some, they may be feeling like that voice is coming, from God or whatever, because they try so many deceptive tactics to get us to act out. Now, what people need to understand is God would never have you act out in a way that would harm others or yourself. So this is where you really have to, have the discernment to know the truth in this heavy, sophisticated, technological, manipulation that is going against us. And I cannot stress it enough. Just always remember, God is never going to ask you to do anything that is going to harm someone or yourself. So please, please do not act out on it. V2K can be so deceptive and manipulative to get you to act out in a way to frame you, to label you, and to get you convicted or charged with something.
Yes.
You cannot trust anything that comes from it. like you said, they even in what you were receiving about unaliving yourself, they tried to do that to me too. They said, you know, that no one cared, no one was going to miss me, that I just needed to kill myself. Or they tried they're going to kill me and make it look like a suicide, or they're
Mhm.
going to kill my mother and my animals. These are just part of the tactics. So everything that is being projected at you from this auditory sense is testing, engaging you, and will measure you, and it'll come back and measure you again. It wants to see where they get a blip on the radar of a reaction and a response out of you, because they're learning your behavior and your responses. So it's
Right.
going to come back again on you. Things that may have worked before. We have things in the beginning because that's where we're most vulnerable. When
Right.
when our whole world implodes is where we're the absolute most vulnerable, and it has the most power. But then we should be able to navigate through the experience, picking up on the patterns of what it is, especially with the organized stalking, with the auditory effect, the directed energy. Yes, they're learning how you respond to that too. So you're also kind of teaching it how, okay, this really gets to her. Let's do some more of it. So we have to really got to get into that where we're processing, going into countermeasures, and being less reactive, because the reactiveness is how we teach it. This whole system, the computers that are behind it, and monitoring our central nervous system responses to all of it. So very good information, Rose. I'm going to bring up your slide. Do you want to?
I want to, well, before you go into that, I wanted to we talk about discernment. And when I was asked, what do I want? What's my mission as a volunteer? And my mission has been no harm to myself, no harm to others, and to teach that to everyone else, because that is an ultimate crisis that we have. And so the no harm is a real focus for me. And I love my community. I love us. I have so many feelings towards this program and what's happening to us. And so that's been my mission. And I want to share some of the, how my targeting's worked and how important the discernment is, because as you mentioned, we are in what I consider almost a rat in a lab, because today, being super hyper focused on what they're doing and the track that we're on, they're very much playing in the very mind. I mean, just a nano of a second to what our experience, emotion, and what is theirs, what they're subjecting to us. And so they're always trying to live in that gray zone, because I believe they want to take that learning and project that onto others. And so my V2K, and do, pain sensations. I have SA. I've had SA for the entire time I've had V2K. I have extreme pain in my ear and jaw. That's the majority of where they like to send some of the vibration and pain signals, but it's been everywhere, including making me trip and fall and catching me sometimes to show me the power of the technologies against my nervous system. But really, this is about behavioral modification and experimentation. And they do it in dream manipulation. They do it with the broadcast. They do it with memory interference. And oftentimes they try to take the visuals, which they've done with me in dream states, but they've done it in when I'm closing my eyes and they're attacking me, and they can show the visual, just like, they can take on Google Maps, they can take a shot of a street and you see it for your house. If you put it up for sale, they can visualize an image, just like an image in your thoughts. Well, what they're doing also is trying to then interfere and manipulate that. And so sometimes they'll throw up a memory visual in the wrong place and at the wrong time, as if they want to see if I catch it. And I do, and reject it. And then they do it again and again. So you can see that there's all of this testing that's happening. And I think that's a really big one. And join our V2K call. We get into the dream state. That's actually a place that you have more power than you realize. I've really been tapping into that for the last 3 years, as they've been diving into that, because you can really control the visuals that are happening in your dream and control the narrative more in that space. So it's an interesting dynamic to participate. But I want to talk about the psychological and gang stalking, because I know while what I understand, not everyone will believe or resonate with what I'm about to say, but I want to share my truth because I can and do believe it will create some of the no harm of my mission.
Mm-hmm.
And I've focused on approaching this from logic, investigation, trauma-informed awareness. When I was being gang stalked, or what I thought was being gang stalked for a period of time, which is the followed, surveyed, I harassed by my neighbors in parking lots, how cars were parking near me on the road, cars beeping their horns, unusual patterns with neighbors, flashing lights, how neighbors would look at me during what seemed to be a synchronized action, again, were very distressing. But to really try to understand what was happening, because I felt that these people were absolutely following me and that there was a pattern to this, I hired really 2 respected private investigator firms. I wanted to rule out anything that could be happening to me, and both return really nothing substantial. I immediately decided to shift that. And I said, I'm going to look at this in a different way and interpret these as deliberate harassment from a different potential trauma loop that is potentially subliminal. I started catching things which I thought were subliminal. Again, I had called the police, and I'm starting to be seen as I call the police and tell them about the gang stalking as the one that's crazy. I'm looking insane, and I'm realizing, okay, people aren't believing me from the PI standpoint. Police are looking at me in distrust, and I'm looking unstable. And so in that moment, it's like, all right, what's really happening here? And I started to shift my lens, and I stopped reacting to the actors and assigning every intent to a cars flashing lights or swerving or glances by neighbors. A family member would laugh at me randomly while V2K saying something, and I thought they were a participant in this, and they were part of this program attacking me. As soon as I took them out and I realized that they were unwitting participants, that they were subliminally in time to look like they were participating, it really shifted. My gang stalking stopped. Things started coming into a different lens and clearer. And I realized this was the psychological pivot I needed to take and shift what was happening to me in this torture. And that's really, if I will tell you, V2K started amplifying. When I took the power away of thinking it was my neighbors, thinking that these cars that were parking and flashing lights and following me to stores and this and that were not intentionally there. They were potentially on autopilot, but the timing of some of their behavior synchronized with what was being done to me was a form of torture that I was being attacked for. And I took that power away. That went away. My V2K really started, shifting my pattern of what tactics were next, changed. But neighbors and everything, family, it all became so enlightening because I realized they were not fully conscious of the acts that they were doing and weren't actively participating. And as I see on some of the calls, people will say, and a lot of our V2K callers have gotten to the phase that I am as well. And you can see the power that you get back when you realize what's happening in this way. One gentleman said, he was feeling in such a way about his neighbors and the people participating in this, at coworkers, that now he has restraining orders on him. He's about to face charges. And then we had another woman who said, I'm a V2K experienced target, and I did jail time because I took actions to the paranoia, to the gang stalkers. And then I became the criminal. I became someone who the restraining order was on. And so that's what they want. And if you can take away the power and potentially look at this as a psychological operation that those are not willing participants, you will see a shift. And I know it takes a lot, and I know people don't believe me in some cases, but there are a lot of us who are in a different stage on the V2K path that now see it. And so there's some power to gain in that. And I just want everybody to consider. But as the gentleman who has the restraining order, the neighbors are looking at him in a certain way now, but his actions physically then created another set of behaviors that weren't related to the torture, the subliminal and psychological torture was happening. So just want to leave that there. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I really,
absolutely.
And it's a real point that I like to bring up a lot.
And very good point. And I'm in alignment with you because, we've been targeted the same amount of years. You're 13 years, I'm 13 years. Mine started in 2012. And the organized stalking, that was very, 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 again, that was at the beginning where I believe all of this has the most power. And I think it's like, they're trying to entrain your brain. I think you're in hypervigilance because you're seeing all of, you're hearing, the organized stalking, or people maybe saying something at you, and then all of these patterns, because your mind in hypervigilance is looking for, the threat, and it's disseminating. Okay, we've seen a lot of red cars there. Why is this neighbor always come outside when, as soon as I go outside, all of these things, because the subconscious mind is on red alert. It's looking for the patterns. It's looking for perceived threats. So that is where they want you to make their job easy by getting yourself that label of unstable, delusional, schizophrenic, violent, acting out. You're just trying to protect yourself. That's what you're ultimately trying to do. And this is being done against you. And they set it up and they frame it in such a way that it makes someone appear to be unstable, and they, for them to say it's one person's word against the other. And as you said, if these frequencies can be used and targeted and directed at us, then who's to say that all the people around us are not having that same thing go with them? But it makes it easy for them if we convict ourselves by acting out violently or getting aggressive with someone. And we're spinning the narrative, and we're making things easy for them. And it's really hard. I did personally stay stuck in that stage for a while, but then I got so tired of it. And I was like, I got to let this go. And then when you shift and reframe things, and that it can't always be this, targeting experience with all this, then it loosens its grip. But then, like you said, it loosened the grip on the organized stalking portion of it, and then amplified the V2K, the auditory, is what happened with me too.
It did, but I will say there is a superpower. Lindsay and our team Liberty have talked about this. Although we're looking for a silver lining here, because V2K is a horrific experience, 24/7. To have communication assaults, your thoughts read back to you, and of course the voice cloning, which also manipulate people in their early phases of V2K to believe others are involved. And I think it's also, though, really powerful to. Just imagine when you're communicating with someone, if you are someone that can read a room, you read an audience, you read the energy and conversation that you're having with someone, your family member, your children, your parents, a coworker, you get something from them communicating with you. There is a power in hearing our torturers and to hear their tactics, which gives me power because I can see how they think. I hear what they say and they're doing. That transparency shows me where I belong in humanity today during this process, and where they belong in today's humanity and what's happening. But it also, there's just some power that you get from hearing their positioning and the tracks that they're playing, the patterns that they're doing, that also throughout the V2K, you take the power back. So I a lot of people, I will say, that don't have V2K or have it here or there are afraid, right? They're afraid to talk sometimes to me about V2K. My sister, I'll tell her briefly and she'll get off the call with me and say weird things happened to her after. I wish we wouldn't talk about V2K. Same thing with my mother. My sister said that to my mother. I've heard other team members that are targets going through gangstalking and they're afraid they're going to get the V2K. And I don't know that anything's in our control, but what we do and how we let it affect us. But there is power in the V2K in seeing who your attackers are, and to also have strength in your discernment. When you start hearing who you are and how you process thoughts, there's growth and there is enlightenment there. So it's not all scary and horrific in what you bring. You will grow stronger. You will become a better version of yourself. So I just want people to know that as well.
Yes, and for somebody having auditory effect, it's like we have to put our position, put ourselves in the position of being the AI, reading and patterning what is being done to us, because it's very cyclic in how these attacks are organized in terms of the auditory. You know that right off the bat, you might as well just open up your closet with skeletons and insecurities, grief and suffering and pain and traumatic events that you've had in your life, because those are going to be right out there. That's going to be tools that they're going to pick up and try to beat you with. How you perceive your appearance, your vulnerabilities, everything it's exploited. So the way that it really helped me to kind of heal from this, other than going down that journey of, reading everything that I could about, psychology and the mindset of a predator and a stalker and a narcissist and gaslighting and mobbing and all of that, because I wanted to arm myself with the tools. And then you see it for what it is, because you understand the baiting that it goes on with the V2K, because they will throw in like 1% of truth and the rest is all garbage. But it's all that truth is a bait to get you to lower your defenses and pay attention to it. And then the toxic cycle repeats itself. They even tried early on to, state that, oh, look at her, we feel so bad, we're going to stop and give you your privacy back. And then, this was really early on in 2012. And then I paid attention to it. And they're like, ha ha ha, she believed that. Again, this is nothing but, this is, and a lot of it is, it can be so juvenile and mediocre, and it's so sandbox. And it's like, okay, but that's also a trauma loop. If you've had any kind of bullying or anything in your past, then it kind of resurfaces that trauma within you. For me, I was always a very heavy, overweight as a child, and I was picked on a lot in school. So, of course, having insecurities, about my body or whatever. And when the auditory effect can tell you that it's looking at you in your restroom, taking a shower and all of that, that's where, again, the exploitation piece of this, because they're really trying to fragment you and just, invoke that fear, that flight and fight and, response within you. But then when you continuously see this over and over again and you're hearing it, all it is that it boils down to is tactics to get you to buy in and to terrorize you.
It is. And don't you feel that there's healing? I was abused as a child. From 9 to 11 by a stepfather, and my mother was an addict, a very white collar looking addict, but participated by looking the other way. And they played that loop, right? I obviously, I went through a lot of therapy through that, and then decided to join the Women's and Children's Center and be a therapist and advocate for other women and children that experienced it. So I had a lot of healing when this started. But they still really tapped into that and said gross, horrific things about me, wishing that happened, and would enjoy those things. Some of the most horrific conversation tracks that you can imagine. And like you said, playing on vanity of your appearance and who you are in any way that could impact your ego. And so you can succumb to those, or you can then dive more into yourself, and with prayer and guidance and self-love, you can heal through those things and take that power away from them. Although they may not stop doing it, but you can see they'll lessen it, because there's less reaction that I get. The less I'm triggered and I'm taunted by the emotions of their statements, then you can see, very often they stop doing it. For mine, They tell me they're government agencies. They don't say what kind. Some of them like to say that. They like to say good afternoon. It's a common phrase for the last 5 years, as if what they're saying, and they've said this, is they're implying it's a new shift, and that I should be then scared of the new shift that's coming in, and what terrorizing pain tactics and psychological, because the pain from the do is debilitating. And I, even in the worst moment where I feel like I'm in a fetal position, I know I have to get up, I have to get outside, I have to put my feet on the ground, I have to keep moving, because it will be better than me just staying in that fetal position and being attacked. It will be better to be out and to be about and to move around and to get the exercise and to focus on the self-healing. But there is some power, because you start to love. Hopefully we can teach people. I started to love myself. I started and stopped letting them make me feel bad about appearances or to feel bad about things. And I do have a bias. I am biased to certain parents that are of a certain gender and a certain age, because I had that experience, and they like to play on that bias. But in the world that we're in, there are a lot of, SA families and children. So they definitely tap into that. And that bothers me a lot. But there's a lot of healing that I've decided to do so that I feel stronger when I am being assaulted with those tracks, those scripts.
Yes, I mean, that was beautifully stated. I think that it's, they are gauging this on a large, grand scale of how human reaction to, projected events and biological attack, and then how those who become resilient and heal in the midst of it, it's all data collection. In my opinion, they are analyzing this. They're trying to perfect a warcraft, which is the war on the mind, the bio field, on people. But we cannot lose ourselves. We have to let go of the before, the targeting, that view of us. We are not that person anymore. What we are, we have started, and we're becoming, we continue to evolve and become more resilient, and to see ourselves through a lens of truth, not distortion that is being projected at us. And some may have mixed feelings on this too. I think that this whole experience has really, taught me about, what I am capable of, that I would have never known had I not gone through this. And then I think that, when we raise our vibration and we heal, then we're able to see that these events, the past, the trauma, things that happened in childhood, all of these things, I look at it as teachers and wisdom that I gained to navigate this experience of being targeted. And then the targeting also presented all of these, avenues where, again, here I am, you have that fork in the road. Are you going to succumb, or are you going to fight for yourself, and to know who you are and what your worth is? Because they really want to try to deteriorate your self-worth and to amplify it. It's all about amplifying anything that you're carrying as an insecurity or a perception. They're going to exploit that. So I have said this many times, that I felt that God gave me that wisdom to say that if I got to the root of what was causing me pain and suffering from what was being done to me by this experience, then it couldn't hurt me anymore. It didn't have no strong hold on me. So this is how we are liberating ourselves from the chains of the oppression that this experience puts on us, because the kryptonite is the healing.
Yeah, I will say that someone gave me really wisdom and insight to someone that visited AA often. And when I started looking up at AA or NA, the one day at a time, the keep it simple, let go and let God, first things first, control only what you can control, focus on the things that you can control. And one of my favorites is, although all of these are very hard, I'm not flippantly saying them, because knowing them versus applying them is very different. But we can practice, which is I only let words and thoughts of others hurt me as much as I allow it to hurt me. And so I think that some of us, AA is a great place. It's not about alcohol and addiction, but the healing part of some of those programs about what you can control in the day by day or the moment. And for us, I feel like it's sometimes second by second, hour by hour, but there is some power in leaning back on some of the strengths of these programs that I would just say maybe look into for others.
That's a very good suggestion, because the teachings there, it is very applicable to what we're going through. For somebody who has been violated in such a way, those that, whether it be through, sexual assault, molestation, and other traumatic, like, beatings and stuff, that may have happened within a period of time or over a course of years, or it was a one-time event. But for us, this is a 24/7 assault. And in any given day could be a variety of different things that are done to us. So that's where it's really important for us to turn the tide and focus on ourselves and making sure that we're not getting lost in the attacks that we are going through, because putting our attention on it, it just like it amplifies it. But
Yes.
then we have to be able to not give in and react to it, and to continue to put one foot in front of the others. And some days is a little bit easier than others, but as long as we're recognizing that we need to give ourselves grace, because we're under the 24/7 attack, we have to be loving toward ourselves. We've got to replace the negativity with something positive. If you have the auditory effect and it is very negatively framed, then flip it with a positive. And this is because I can tell you they can't stand that, right?
Right. Yes.
It's like they're not going to win. You just have to keep going. You have to chase it like there's nothing else more important.
That's right.
Because there isn't. You are a divine sovereign being. You claim your divine birthright. No one of this earth or otherwise can take that from you. And watch God move in and rise up with you and support you. You'll get the ideas. You have to fight for this. We in knowing that, and this is how I feel that we help others by sharing our stories, because the patterns are so evident. There is the personalized, not everybody gets the same type of targeting, but there's so many commonalities. And once you hear what others have done to counter what is being done to them, and how they're finding ways to cope and to progress and to heal and to gain movement in their lives, it sparks that within others. And it's just like this wave of awareness and healing for those that are going through this. I know that, you can probably attest to this too, being 13 years into it, just as I am. You don't want people to stay stuck in those stages of the loops of, just fighting up against it, giving all of your energy. I've spent many days just yelling back at this and being so angry about it. But I got so tired of being angry, and I'm like, I need to channel that anger in a constructive way for myself and my own healing, because, this system and how they attack us is so relentless.
It's so important that we, as they say on an airplane, you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help anyone around you. And it's very hard some days for us to function and to put that foot in front of the other. But give yourself the grace, as you mentioned, and share, connect. When you find connection with others, when you join this community, when you give of yourself, there's power in that. There's learnings in that. And although it's not easy and doesn't get easier, and many people say, please tell me how to stop it when they call into the call. I don't have that answer. I can only tell you what we've learned to look within and to maneuver within what is happening to you. And like you said, the affirmations we do in our household on the way to school, and then I do them for myself, and I have to do them out loud because obviously meditation and internalizing thoughts are really difficult to do with V2K. But give yourself grace, and there are healings that we can share as a group.
Yes, and there are apps out there too where you can do the affirmations based off a topic. Like maybe if you want to work on self-empowerment, and they're all self-empowering statements. You can even flag the ones that you like and then create your own. So there's a lot out there, and a lot of them have the free trials, and it's a good first step for someone who may not know how to start reframing all of this negativity. Be very mindful too about your internal dialogue of what you say about yourself and your circumstances, because again, that you're feeding the negativity and amplifying it. So you have to reframe it. It's really, it does help. I promise. It's foreign, when you first start doing it, right? But with everything repetition, you'll start to see the benefit from it.
100%.
All right. Do you want to talk to us about your slides here? And great.
Yeah, some of these things are what we cover on our V2K call. We have routine callers, and we have new folks that come in for the first time, and so we try to pick topics that are very aligned with V2K and learnings that we are finding and reading from DARPA, HARPA, and others, folks that are focused on neuroethics on a global scale and that are trying to fight what we know is happening. They're almost in a forecast of the future. We know what's happening here and now, but this is really, not something that we're this delusional. This is happening, and we discuss these things. We reference reading material, and again, a lot of what we're sharing are opinions, just like the books and authors. So they're for your discernment and discretion, but good things around what we find and what we share on getting through this. And knowledge is power, and self-reflection is power in sharing. So that's what we're sharing here on these slides that you'll see from our V2K call.
Excellent information.
Yeah, so great reporting that you can find, and we can share this after. This is a YouTube that's investigating DARPA and their secret testing behavior shaping technology from the neural level, which we know is available. So you can watch and investigate some of this on your own. And this is an example of that one.
Okay.
Another here, these are neuroethics organizations and their initiatives around working towards neuroethics. We love, there are countries like Chile that have brought in some neuroethic privacy. There's a long way to go. We know the European Union has some other policies that they're bringing about. And so there's some great things around privacy, cognitive rights that's happening on an international level that we're bringing and sharing. And we are really excited about a symposium that we have in Boston. Team Liberty is leading the charge, and we're really focused on this here, the neuroethics from an international standpoint, because again, all we know is that we have our voice, we have our ability to share, and through sharing and connection, the patterns come together. Lots of folks have had scans and tests, and so those are certainly powerful sharings, but we also know that there are others in the community of neuroethics that we would like to have as a part of that. And so we're building that in-person and hybrid symposium February 27th. We'll be having that. More details to come you'll find on our V2K and TI events. But we believe in just like Sarah with Fine Sisters has her event coming up here in October. We're as a team doing what we can do and what is a passion for us. And I certainly believe that giving of myself and to others, not only have I found connection, I found pattern that's taken the power away from my torturers, but also giving to others and seeing that one person from a call, one person from an event can be helped. Like you were saying, if I had this information early on, there's so many stages that I could have shortened the life of that experience and that track that they were running. And so if we can just impact one person, if we can empower this community and save them from potentially doing what they want, committing themselves from schizophrenia or committing a crime against a neighbor or loved one, those things, certainly understanding the psychological piece so that you can take back the power as much as possible. Those are the things that we're trying to accomplish. And we feel really good about it. We are all, most of us are V2K and do survivors, victims, however you want to call it. But we show up in the best way we can. And we feel strong in the power of numbers and communication and connection.
That's amazing. How exciting for this symposium. And you said that was going to be in Boston in February,
Yes.
and that you will have more updates as it gets closer, and that will be available through the Victory through V2K call and TIevents.org.
That's correct.
And please, share that information with me. I will definitely post that on my Chosen Heroes X page to get greater visibility for the event. I support anyone out there that is trying to organize events, whether it be symposiums or the calls. If you have a meetup group that you've organized or you participate in, you can share that information with me, and I will publish that as well on the Chosen Heroes page. So thank you so much. So you're in the process of getting all of your speakers organized and all of that fun stuff, right?
Yeah, it's very exciting. We have our wish list, of course, but we have to pull those things together. And as a nonprofit and volunteer group, actually, this is funded by our group. So we have volunteers that are covering this. And, obviously speakers will get paid for events like this. So we're asking for donated time and we're covering cost. And so pulling all those things together is super important, but challenging. So more details will come, but we've got our roadmap. We have our agenda. We'll have our testimonials in person. We'll have some documentaries that we're covering from Duncan and other, but we're Brian Coffrin, but we also are going to have a panelist and speakers that are really focused on the neuroethics. We believe that it's really important to go into that space, especially on the international channel front, because there are people already, watchdogs and Big Brother foundations internationally that are looking for this. And if we can bring potentially patterns together and connect the dots, that's when we hope whistleblowers will come out of this, and legislation, policies, and obviously the destruction of this program wherever it lives.
Amen. So exciting. So glad to hear that you've organized this event and the neuroethics, focus on it as it is important. It's imperative for humanity and the future of humanity, because the way things are heading right now, it's just like everybody's going to be subjected to this. And in some sense, I think there are so many more that are experiencing this and have absolutely no idea. Kind of like what, Targeted Justice has said about the threat screening database. It was the terror screening database that categories 3 and 4, the only difference between 3 and 4, which, this is a blacklisting, right, is one category knows that they're targeted and one of them does not. So
Right.
And I think more and more people, that's why it's so important to get this information out, because people may be experiencing what we have already come to learn as targeting. And then this helps solidify it and put the dots together. It helps prevent them from acting out and harming themselves or someone else, or getting themselves charged or committed or labeled in some way. And as you said too, we want to help others so they don't have to suffer through all of these stages for that long duration. We know that free will choice, sometimes it just takes, someone time to move through these different phases, because the mind is going through so much in each one of these phases, and it has to catch up, because sometimes it's like information overload. They can't visually see those actions that will bring them relief. Sometimes you have to kind of give them the grace and let them go through it at their pace, but at least you've presented that information. And I think it's also important for us to understand that within this community itself, there has been people that are very derogative toward other TIs. We have to understand that, just because you're at one phase, somebody else is at the beginning. So,
Right.
you have to give them grace and understand that what you were feeling during that time. We're also under this subliminal frequency violation and manipulation too. So
Absolutely.
that could be.
That's a big one, Melissa. I say it often. I think you were asking about, teaching others and our children. There's that discernment of knowing your emotions and feelings. And I was super frustrated the other day with someone, and I said, that's really unusual. I should not be that frustrated. I should not be that upset with this person. This is absolutely just the most ridiculous feeling to be associated with this nothing of an incident. And I immediately realized that's probably not even an accurate emotion that I'm having, because so often they forced me to cry and to feel sensations of emotions that were false. And when they were real obvious, that's when you're like, oh my gosh, that's a planted subliminal feeling and emotion. But sometimes when you could be a little bit upset, but you wonder why it's a 10, like maybe it should be a 0.5 of an emotion of being upset, but your emotions are telling you're on a level 10 upset. And so start questioning that. As soon as I questioned that, it went away. And I realized, oh, in fact, it was. And so, my child, I try to teach her that. And she came out to me one day and said, Mom, I don't know why, but just the air you breathe, and teenagers are teenagers, but this was more. She said, everything that you're doing is frustrating me so much. It just doesn't feel normal. But I've taught her to question that, to question those things. And maybe for her, because I don't share what's happening in this community into me, is that maybe she needs someone to talk to about it, so she can at least self-regulate those emotions. She can at least self-reflect. And I think that's an important thing for all of us.
And I think for society in general, the emotions have been so suppressed, just in the way things are being handled, with every time you turn on the news. I mean, it's just like, it's such a fear fest
Yes.
all over the place. And it's easy to get kind of sucked into all of that. But then again, we have to become the guardians of our energy and put those boundaries up. And maintaining healthy boundaries is very, very crucial, especially for those, for anyone, but for us being targeted as well. We want to surround ourselves with the positivity and interact with those that are a, balanced experience. If you're interacting with someone where it's just all a bunch of negativity being dumped on you, and you feel so drained and tired after that interaction, then your boundaries are not being, respected or held. It's not an equilibrium between the two. So again, we have to really, really fight for our boundaries, and to make, because we are so overloaded with being attacked. And so again, just be mindful about the interactions with others. Your body's going to tell you if that, okay, how do you feel after interacting with someone? Now, again, if you have auditory effect, they're going to sit there and start saying things about that person. And like Rose said, it's you have to start, questioning yourself. I catch it when I am feeling so overwhelmed and outraged, like you said, or really just like, I'm like, why am I in a tailspin? Why am I feeling this way about someone? And then start, questioning it. Is it coming from me and from a place of
Is
ego?
it a trigger from something else in the past?
Yeah, something that happened before, something that I feel that I lack.
Yes.
What is it an insecurity, or is this being subliminally projected at me? So
Yes.
that's where we have to kind of start dissecting what's happening when we're all, engulfed in a emotional moment, is just to get to the layers to see what it is about. Is it subliminal? Is it something that is subliminal, exploiting something within me? It may be that, like I said, an insecurity or perceived perception, and it is just trying to capitalize on it in that moment.
Yeah, and I love what you said about not sitting in a place of judgment. I think that empathy is something that everybody can learn and get better at with practice, and you might not have it, or you might have a ton of it. But it's important, especially with other TIs in our community, that we lead with that empathy. We're all going to have different experiences from this program because it's based on our life experiences, based on our thoughts and beliefs. So those are going to be unique. But also, no one can say, I have it worse or you have it less. You have to lend your heart in a place of empathy. You have no idea what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes, to have their experiences. And if you just assume immediately from a place of love and from a place of empathy how this person may come at me, the choice of words that they use towards me in this conversation, and I'm going to immediately assume this has nothing to do with me. I'm going to disarm that this isn't a personal attack. I'm going to disarm how this feels very pointed and know that this is something they may be going through and it's not about me. And now all of a sudden, I'm not upset with them. I understand and feel with empathy and love of where they're coming from. And now I show up with grace in this interaction. And then they may get disarmed and show a little less upset, a little less potential place that they're coming from. And so just, I always try to remind and myself and others is to lead with empathy. You have no idea what another person's life experiences, current experiences, how they manage those experiences, which go back to their own life experiences. So just lead with love and empathy. It's going to be critical. Lead with grace, and just be a force of help and support and show up with love. And that's really all we can do in this community for each other. But it's easy for our egos. I say it all the time. I get passed by on a car, by a car, and I'm going fast enough, or vice versa. And my ego wants to jump and react. But if I can recognize it's my ego and check it, just like with other people, if I realize, oh my gosh, that's my pride and ego, I didn't like the way they said that, I want to show up in this way to put them in their place. But no, I try to really, and it's a practice, come from a place of empathy and love, not knowing at all their experience. And I hope that all of us in this community continue to focus on trying to do that. It's a learned skill. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's something we have to practice, but it's important.
Absolutely. So you want to explain this summary of evidence and credibility?
Yeah, so you'll see the examples that we have in this deck, which we'll share after. We're really aligning with neuroethics working groups, other academic journals, media that's really exposing DARPA, HARPA, other journalists who have done things around the Washington Post, and other really important journalists who have actually spoken to brain warfare, that they're actually writing about this. This is actually being documented, that there are sources of credible evidence that you can certainly spend some time and research, depending on what your objective is for this. Sometimes it's validating for others. Sometimes they want to take action with this. They want to be involved and write into these. They want to petition. Not everyone has the time and capability to do all of these paths. So find what fits And in your place, is that just understanding and validating what you're going through, or is that volunteering and being a part of it? And so we just want to expose some of the material and evidence that gives the credibility so that you know that your voice is heard, seen, and we believe you. This is real. And we're doing all that we can. And we invite you to do what you can, be a part as much as you can, and show up in ways to help the cause.
Absolutely.
This is a little bit about the sexual assault via the directed energy weapons is something I've experienced from the beginning, where they played the entity, the devil, ghost for some, and spent many years playing that role. And I totally believed it because of the evil thoughts and the actual visuals that they would place up in my brain of horror movie type scenes. So it felt very much fell into that. But if you go into the next slides, I think the important thing is that we're trying to, with truth and empowerment, show that these are not about sex. It is about degrading your identity. It's about destroying your humanity. The sexual abuse is an extreme that's very much what you can see in studies from hostage and POWs. The psychology around this actually has been documented, and what they describe in that is exactly what we from the V2K and do experience in our essay. And so you have to remember that, you know, what you can control is how you manage those thoughts and feelings. And so we're just trying to empower you with education, and that's understanding the nature of the essay that they're doing, what your emotional response is going to be: terror, horrific helplessness, and you're certainly going to go into a fight, flight, and freeze. And I still do to this day. And I recognize I'm in a freeze, and I try to, deactivate that and get out of that. But we have to know that some get into a place of dissociation. Your mind splits off because the overwhelming pain and humiliation really can make you detach. And so there's some on our group that have shared how they went through that dissociation and felt like they were almost lost to it, and how they came out on the other side. We'll have some speaking about that. But again, I think sharing and understanding the complexity of the PTSD will give you some empowerment. It doesn't go away. I can't tell you anything that completely removes this tactic. It definitely has diminished some weeks and months, and then some I will get a new crew or shift in the tactic, and I'll spend days with the most horrific essay and the most horrific psychological torture to go with it. And the cruelty is just off the charts. But I know what it's coming from. I know that it is intending and what the nature is for, and that gives me some power, I will just say. And so you have to self-reflect and connect with others. If it's been a really bad experience, which I had one recently, I reached out to my group. I shared with them. Somebody called me. I described it because it felt like a very new, innovative technology torture, horrifically. And just having that person I could share the details to, that just heard me. They just sat and heard me, felt that I took the power away from the incident. And now it's much minor in my memory. But to know it is for me to share it with others.
And what we have to understand about the trauma is it resides in our cells. So that's why we have to do ways of healing, and not to be in the present moment. I want to also say, I want to read this information because some may not be able to see the wording on it. And it's so beautifully precisely articulated in this. And it's I think knowledge is power. And this is a key that we all need, that experience the sexual assault through the electronic frequencies. So it says sexualized torture as a tool of control, understanding the trauma response. Number one, nature of the act. Sexual assault used as torture is not about desire. It's not about desire, but about breaking the victim's will, degrading our identity, and destroying trust in humanity. I cannot say how 100% on point. That is, they are trying to break your will and to degrade your identity. They're trying to invoke that humiliation, that that vulgar violation against your body. This is classified under organized extreme abuse in trauma psychology and overlaps with what we know from POW, which is prisoner of war, and hostage survivors. Number 2, expected mental and emotional responses is acute terror and helplessness. The brain's fight, flight, freeze system is fully activated but physically constrained. Disassociation. The mind splits off to survive overwhelming pain or humiliation. Survivors may later feel numb, detached, or watching themselves, shame and contamination feelings. Although the act is not about sex, survivors can still feel sexual shame layered over physical violation, loss of agency, and betrayal trauma because the assault is inflicted by humans deliberately. Trust in others and in one's own perception collapses. Complex PTSD or CPTSD, nightmares, flashbacks, hypervigilance, difficulty regulating emotions, distrust, self-blame, and ongoing somatic symptoms. And number 3, POW, again, prisoner of war and hostage psychology. Studies of prisoner of war victims show that psychological injury from sexualized torture can be equal to or greater than physical injury. Many survivors describe moral injury, the deep psychic wound from the witnessing or enduring human cruelty on purpose. Recovery is not just about stopping flashbacks, but rebuilding a shattered world view. I cannot agree with that any more. That is so well articulated. You can understand the motive behind it is because it is so degrading. So
Yes.
that, I mean, again, it's all about that psychological wounding. But I want people to know that on the Chosen Heroes YouTube page, I have a video that I created that is for the shielding. That, for men, you can you can take that example and modify it. But for me, it helps. And others that have reached back out to me, they said it did help them. Now, it's something that you can wear as, for women as an insert, and it does help mitigate that. It uses earth magnets. There's a silicone mat and the Faraday fabric. And it's just, again, it is something that is, comfortable and portable that you can wear. I also want to say to women that, for those, you can wear, if you have chest, stimulation from these directed energy attacks, you can wear a sports bra and use clear quartz crystal, or the lighter crystals, rose quartz, clear quartz, calcite, fluorite, those type of things, and just put it in the center. And that, if you're having attacks at your heart or your chest, those natural crystals really do help mitigate that type of attack on you. Again, this is where creativity comes in. You've got to, try and experiment things that work for you and help you to give you some relief. But then the recognition of it is, okay, the intent is to, invoke shame, humiliation, and to break your will and to degrade you. But when you recognize the intent, then it loses its power.
Definitely a shift. Mm-hmm.
Big, huge shift. I'm like, because I used to, with those who have auditory effect and you're getting the sexual assault with the auditory, it's just kind of like this double whammy kind of a thing. The absurdity that is used with the
Yes.
auditory. In addition to that, is we're talking about the most revolting, disgusting display of human behavior. But again, we can't, this is a system. We are being attacked by this system of, all these different organizations and players that are involved with this system, doing these crimes against humanity. And we need to be able to take our power back, and by understanding the motivation behind it, so that we can diminish its power over us. I think that's where I got stuck a lot in the beginning. I took it so personal that I was like, how could somebody be so cruel to me? I have never, ever done anything that would warrant this level of cruelty. Then you start gaslighting yourself, and looking at every little thing or little misstep, which is so minuscule in this thing. No one deserves to go through this. No one deserves to experience what we are being subjected to in this. There's
And it's
nothing
so hard.
nothing that anyone has ever done deserves this.
And it's so hard, like you said, you start to internalize it, especially with the V2K conversation that's occurring. But as soon as you realize and put yourselves in the POW and hostage situation, and you realize what the nature of the act is, then that, I believe, the self-shame, and you realize the tactic behind it, that's the shift that comes with that. Because if you think about in the history of humankind, in wars and terror, there is no off bounds. There's nothing that's off limits. But then you can kind of realign this and not self-reflect and not internalize. And that's the power we want to give you here, to get your identity back, to not let the shame be about you, and know that this is a program. This is intent that is about them and not you.
I know in the beginning, and I'd like your opinion on this too, of your experience in the beginning. I know it was very isolating for me. They started to do these attacks on my mother, so it was just me and her. It pained me to have to go out into to go to a store to go get groceries. She didn't drive, so I was the one that needed to get out, and it was so overwhelming just to go out and do something as simple as shopping, because of, if you have the auditory effect, and then you see all of these perceived and organized characters all around you, and all of these things, and you're just trying to get from point A to B to get what you need and get back, almost get back into your cave and your hibernation. It was really a painful thing to do. And then the one thing that I truly love to do was, and I've always loved, is live music. And during that period of time when I was in my isolation, loop and phase of this experience, I didn't even go do the live music. I couldn't even go do that. So one day I was just like, what is going on? I love this. I need to do this for myself. And that's where you have to start pushing your envelope, right? You got to push your boundaries, and you got to get back out there. Not everybody is, involved in this experience, and there are good humans on this earth. I promise you, you can't, give up on all of humanity. Just
they want to isolate you. That is intentional. That's so intentional.
They love it, because what do they get to do? They get to bombard you in your environment, which is supposed to be your sanctuary, your place of residence, your home. It's supposed to be your sanctuary, and they want to make it a war zone for you. And that's why go ahead.
I know that similar to you, it's really compartmentalizing in a healthy way that I had to practice from the gang stalking to stop looking around me. I didn't care if someone was looking at me on the aisle. If I saw them on another aisle, I
Right.
immediately made a very intentional decision to make every reason that they were there besides me, or to not make eye contact with them,
That
and
helps.
started really practicing that. And then there were other things. My church, grew up from very young age going 3 days a week to church, and I was very involved. I sang in the choir. I played on our sports team. My mother was in Sunday school, and it was just like the community raised me. And I moved across the country to another part of America, and I'm finding my home, and this is just starting to happen to me. And I had such a strong relationship with God, and I felt like I was making phone calls when I would pray, and we would just talk all the time. And it didn't have to be this, facilitated prayer time or this type of prayer conversation. And they immediately took that away. And so I had to start doing things out loud. But immediately with the sexual assault, while I'm in church. Now, remember, I've been at the beginning thinking that this is the devil, there's a ghost or entity, and it's assaulting me now, to realizing this is a form of torture that is similar to a POW and hostage experience. And now I've got power in associating this in the right place. But going into church, and I'm singing, I'm participating. We have big screens. I'm a Presbyterian church. I belong to a Presbyterian church, and we have a music with live band, and we have TVs that are showing, so you can sing along with the lyrics. It's one of my favorite times to be a part of that outside of the ministry. And during those songs, and when I would get emotional, they would essay me during that to interrupt the most beautiful spiritual time that I was having by making me feel this part inside of me and outside of me in my lower region. And I had to imagine it kind of back to, now I know these are actual human beings. This is not an entity. This is not a ghost, I believe. But I did still kind of put it back there so that they could not take away the moment that I was having and singing the song, being in church, enjoying that moment while doing that. Because immediately the first few times it happened, I wanted to leave. I did not want that to be the place that they did this. I did not want to interrupt. And they took that away from me. And I stopped going for a few Sundays until I realized, no, I've got to disassociate what they're doing and just imagine, it is a form of an entity. It is this warfare of these frequencies that are doing it. And it has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with the song that I'm singing, the moment that I'm experiencing. And they stopped doing it more and more, the less that they got me to run out of the room, the less they got me to cry about it. So it took a lot of practice. But I think, to your point, there are just moments that when you understand the control that they're trying to take from you, and to not give it to them, even though it was so much easier to run out of there and go climb in my bed and then just be attacked there, or disassociate what they're doing with anything about me and still being present and having that then just frequently go away. And it just get less and less, because less trigger response for me, the less they did it. And so I would say that would be, some of my feedback that I've learned.
Absolutely. They need your emotional buy-in. They need your response in order to succeed. So I just make it my mission to rob them of that. I'm going to rob them of that joy and that satisfaction and any kind of incentive that they get for their quota of reactions that they get from me. So that's where you can kind of shift it. It's just like, I just go into my countermeasures of, trying to make myself, comfortable and to work through it and to keep pushing myself. It's like when I'm getting attacked, I just push myself, harder to focus on something else that is constructive for me, because, sitting there and just being engulfed in that pain is just, to me, like you said, it's a power struggle. It's about control.
Yes.
It's that is all this is designed to do, It is just so demented. Yes, it is. And
They I don't know about you, but they sometimes are very sarcastic, and sometimes they're faded out with the white noise. Sometimes they're very clear in communication. I have a 3 constant line, whether it's AI or actual humans in those 3 lines of communication. You know, they'll say things to me about, oh, here's the optimist, because I have built that affirmation and that positivity that you talk about so often, Melissa. And so now they try to make fun of that. Like, oh, she's the optimist. And well, thank you. You know, I'm just like, you know, I don't really try to give any reaction to the thoughts that they have, but you know, you can see that they recognize the change and shifts that you bring, and they don't
yeah,
like it.
because you know, nothing shuts them up more than you winning. So it's like
Yep.
they're just looking for a crumb on the floor, you know, of
Yeah.
what they can get for the day. They're looking for scraps. And so I'm like, I'm not even giving you a crumb.
That's right.
So
Right.
you have to get to that point, you know, because it's all psychological manipulation, and the only way they win is your buy-in to it. So this is what we have to do to get ourselves up out of the hole that they've tried to throw us in all of this time. They try so many different maneuvers just to see how you're going to respond to it, but you know, the response is the key. This is just amazing. I think what I'll do, if you don't mind, Rose, I will definitely publish this on the Chosen Heroes. I think this is such important information for people to see, and then refer back to the episode today. This is really, really key information. I have thought about it, and you know, through the lens of, you know, those who have been sexually assaulted and molested, and are survivors of that, but not from I did not think of the prisoner of war aspect of that, because it is it and it can be greater than physical injury. So again, we're getting the directed energy, which is the physical sensation of these attacks, in addition to some of us the sexual. They're just trying at every angle, because when this first happens and you realize that there's zero privacy whatsoever, that they can, you know, intercept your thought before you even recite it in your head, you know, that's how sophisticated this is. And then, you know, see your surroundings and comment on what is going on in your environment and what you're doing, and the choices that you make, and they're trying to, you know, prevent you from doing anything that is constructive. All of this swirling around in a day to day. So
Can I end with one thing that I just wanted to share that I remembered, that if I can share with others in the tactics? Before I knew that they could read my every thought, that they had every visual memory of my being born until today, they know every single feeling that I have, how I view the world, how I view others. But before I knew that, they manipulated that and would play games around how I perceive things. Now I don't have to debate in this two-way conversation feelings and thoughts that they know are opposing my actual beliefs. And so I dismantle that sometimes, because I'm not going to argue with that position that you're stating I feel or that happened in history, when that's a false story. That's a false feeling. I know they have all access. So I'm not going to debate something that is completely in dispute of those feelings and thoughts. And that takes that power away. So I knew beginning in the V2K, when I didn't know they could read and have access to all those memories and moments to a visual standpoint, because they've shown me my life memories in visual standpoints, then I don't have to argue and debate them, because it's a lie. I'm not interested in going back and forth with you. Because obviously, if they try to shame you on something, you're like, no, I didn't. Just like a boss or coworker, a spouse, they want to say, you didn't load the dishes. Well, yes, I did. And you debate it. But in this scenario, just know if they are saying things to you and doing things of shame that are not accurate, don't debate them, because they know actually your story and your history.
Yeah.
And so there's no point in wasting time. And there were years that I wasted thinking, oh, they thought this about my experience and feelings. Once I knew that they actually had all of that information, I didn't need to debate it. I didn't need to argue it, that it was literally a tactic. There was a lot of power there.
Oh, that is a great point. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because when this all began, as everybody probably knows, that it began while I worked at a private business that was owned by a millionaire with legal, law enforcement and political deep connections, right? So I found things that was an adversity to their employee population and the general public, and I started to, reveal my findings, and their leadership, threatened me in person, face to face, saying that if I didn't stop, reporting my findings, then I was going to suffer a negative consequence in my life. And then that's when the gang stalking and the gaslighting when the workplace started, the bullying and the gaslighting, and then it turned into organized stalking, and then it turned into the V2K at work only, but then it went to my home, and then the home tampering, had a landline tap on my phone. And then after I found and discovered that, I even had Houston police threaten me, saying that, don't you know who you're up against? Meaning that, billionaire with the connections. He's like, nobody's going to believe you. You make one more phone call, I'll personally put you in my car and have you mentally evaluated. That's what I was up against, right? But one of the things that they tried to gaslight me with in that environment was that I sent this email out to all these people, which I did not. And then I stole something. And I'm like, I didn't do that. When you have, and I think that's what they use to exploit you with, right? Because if you're somebody that has, morals and integrity, and you pride yourself on that integrity, and that's who you are, and that is the cusp of your being, and they're coming against you with that, right? And it, like you said, it is a tactic. I even heard them say in that environment that keep doing what you're doing because it's working on her. We are trying to invoke the fight, flight, and freeze response.
Right.
I mean, they weren't the brightest crayons in the box, who they enlisted to do this kind of mess to me in that environment. But again, it was right there in front of my face, and look at what I think it got handed over because, again, this person had agency contacts. I went to the FBI, and who is in the lobby when I got there? The risk manager for that private company. So that told me, and the only person that knew I was going was my mother, who lived with me. It was not stated on a phone call or any other person. So it was already 24/7 surveillance.
That's the power in sharing. When we can come together, we start to understand what they're doing, and there's strength in that. I'm so sorry you went through that. This is just, it is unimaginable. And together is where we will create impact and change. I really, really believe we have a chance to do something and have impact here, not just within our sharing and ourselves, but these organizations that are aligned. We really can come together and bring about change.
It's so important for those with auditory not to listen to the bargaining that is being done by the perpetrators or the handlers, the AI that is being used on you. An example would be, one thing they tried with me is if I would write a letter to that, CEO of that private company, saying that all of my reportings and findings was in my head, that they would give me my privacy back. So the devil is a liar. There's no honor amongst thieves. And I knew better, because what they were trying to do is to get me, labeled, right, as delusional and psychotic, schizophrenic. And there again, don't trust them. We want our freedom and our privacy back so bad, but these people that are doing this to us are not going to do it. That's why we got to expose this. We got to expose what's being done to humanity. You cannot barter with these people. It is not going to work well. It's not going to end well, and you're putting yourself and on the line and at severe risk if you do anything that it advises you to.
100% of every single word and tactic is a manipulation. No one should ever listen. And I know in desperate times people have thought they've been promised, and they need to hear those of us who have seen through and maneuvered through different tactics and stage that all they want to do is discredit and create unbelievability of your position and dehumanize you. The first, I would say, 3 months of my V2K, the 12 hours would go by and they would say, just go to the hospital, go to the police, tell people around you what's happening, just articulate exactly what's happening. They would say this, at that time, there were 8 of them communicating. They wanted me to envision these 8 entities and human beings speaking to me. But that's what they would say, because immediately what would happen then? I would no longer be believed. I would be communicating that I was a schizophrenic based on the terms of today's documented medical asserts of what we're describing. But we know that that's not what's happening, and we see that it's documented. So no one should ever believe anything. Someone I met in a group recently said, well, they sound very logical. I built a relationship. There's some friendship there, blah, blah, blah. And I just want people to know everything is a tactic. Everything is a manipulation. Never trust, never listen. Know yourself. Surround yourselves with people in the TI community that can help you. And don't just sit with your thoughts. Journaling and articulating out loud, you'll see there's a varied difference in how things are processed when you speak out loud, when you journal, and certainly join these communities and talk through what's happening so that you get out of the cycle of what they're doing in your thoughts.
Absolutely. Do you want to talk about the support in the therapeutic approach?
Yeah, the importance is validating. What happens to you is real. It is torture. You are not to blame. Survivors deserve stability and predictability in supportive spaces like you are here today. Look at your informed choices. You decide when to share. You decide when to pause. But there is power in sharing. So continue to show up on these calls. Continue to be supported around others who know that this is real. In the trauma-focused healing, and this is pulling from a lot of studies around POWs and sexualized torture, and it's about stabilizing and doing things like grounding, breathing intentionally. Mindfulness is critical. Doing things that are body-based skills to really manage your panic. Or disassociation, or both. And so we know that there are things that you can do like EMDR, somatic experience and exercises, self-soothing skills, which are taking a walk, taking care of yourself, taking a shower, maybe getting dressed, being around things that make you feel good, journaling, and definitely checking in with yourself. So mindfulness is critical in care. Understanding the abuse, as we've mentioned, these are purposeful torture tactics. That means they are meant to humiliate you. They are not about sex. The goal is to make you feel powerless. Surviving, as we're talking about today, survival, every moment proves their failure. Every moment you survive, every moment you do not take the actions that they desire, the emotion triggers that they want, you are winning. And so you've got to recognize the trauma triggers like sounds, sensations, and words. I have an example for words. They try to, with sexual abuse that I experienced as a child, they use words that are traumatizing and want me to be triggered every time I hear that word or I hear that sound. And so I have found every time they do that, I literally find a visual of that word in a positive, in a pleasant place that is associated for me, that I own. And so now when they hit that trauma trigger for a word, sound, or sensation, I immediately go to my billboard. I have a billboard, outdoor billboard, that I visualize, and I throw things up on that billboard, a word, a visual, and those help me ground and take the power back from what they're trying to do in that trauma trigger. And so, again, it's practice, and things work for different people. But remember, these are intentional torture tactics, and you'll have to find ways through these groups and others to take the power back. And it can be done.
Excellent advice. We have to find ways to definitely through, I think grounding is, I'm a big advocate for the grounding. They have the grounding mats and the pillowcases and all of that for times when you can't just go outside and ground. And then it's very important knowing that, you know, right behind the ears is that big vagus nerve, and either, you know, using some essential oils, you know, something that is calming, to soothe, you know, the central nervous system, you know, putting it along your spine and, you know, along the sides of your necks, and then at your heart, you know, that it can be very calming. You know, we deal with a lot of pain from these type of attacks. There are a lot of essential oils that help with pain. I couldn't live without lavender and peppermint. I think that, of course, you know, helping your body, because we're under such constant attack, I think detoxing it on a regular is imperative for us to get rid of these free radicals that, you know, from all of the attack and frequencies that we are subjected to, you know, consciously, you know, choosing healthier choices and habits. Of course, you know, it's hard when we're suffering. You know, it's, you know, sometimes you just want to be comforted, and sometimes that it could be food, you know, it could be a beverage, you know, that type of thing, but just, you know, not having it in excess. You know, we got to take care of our temple, you know, because it, you know, it's got us, you know, through all of this to today, right? And,
Right.
you know, I think that I find relief too when I'm under like heavy directed energy. You know, you want to make sure that your lymphatic system is constantly open and flowing. I bought one of those vibration plates where you could stand on it and you can, you know, play it at a certain level, and it helps with the, you know, the circulatory, the lymphatic drainage. But, you know, sometimes I will just, you know, sit on it because it helps me, you know, relax my shoulders, because I'm somebody who really wants to tighten up at the neck and the shoulder level. Again, you can practice, you know, somatic yoga where you're doing, you know, shaking of the arms, and, you know, the breathing is so important when we're under attack or we're in a emotional triggered response, and just to try to take those deep breaths and to ground ourselves, to feel our feet on the floor, and to center ourselves and help ourselves get through that moment with some comfort. So thank you for sharing this really, really important information with everyone.
Thank you for letting me participate in such a powerful community you've built.
Thank you. And then you also have the empowerment practices. You want to discuss this? This is all great information. I really appreciate you presenting this with us here today.
Absolutely. I think that we all are experiencing a very individualized attack, and those experiences are based on our life experiences, and so we have to empower ourselves and an identity through victimhood by using creativity and ways that you can draw. There's a lot of health, and you'll find it in mental health studies that they'll have art studios, because there is therapy, and so getting, you know, whatever you like, whether it's the books that, you know, has the color coding and the pens that you just color in, or you like to free flow with charcoal on a canvas, or paint with oil paints, or stamp. There are so many different things that you can do that really is creates replaces the bad cortisol that you're experiencing and gives you all the good feelings that you need. So there's creativity that I think is really healthy. You can do that with yourself or loved ones. Spirituality, regardless of your beliefs, really looking into spirituality and connecting with a higher power, God for me, and advocacy, I believe, in helping others. Movement, certainly get up, get out, and take those actions. Like you were struggling with your music festivals, but going through it anyway, pushing through and doing those things and getting into a place that makes you feel good, and not let them take that away. And certainly the exercise, by putting the oxygen mask on first before you can do anything else, you have to breathe, right? And so that movement and exercise is critical. Be happy with the small wins. Celebrate the moment by moment wins. You had a good morning, let that be a celebration. You had a good day, let that be a celebration. And have grace for yourself. Pat yourself on the back, and find safe routines for yourself. Right? If you're feeling that they're hitting you with weapons that make you feel drugged, as some have described, or do things that are walking safely. Hit your backyard, your front yard. Find trusted people that you can communicate with, as I've listed here, trusted contacts, and affirmations. We do them on our way in the morning to start our day. You can do them throughout the day. If something negative is being hit with you, remind yourself of positive affirmations like "my body is mine," and find peer groups so that you don't isolate. It breaks the shame. There's the gray method. You can find it psychcentral.com/health/gray-rock-method. Lots of good things there. And just remember, you're countering psychological manipulation. This is a PSYOPs and a V2K harassment, and it can mimic through violent audio and physical sensations at the same time. Your nervous system is reacting and responding to that. So you want to look at those because that's a perceived and actual threat your body is reacting to. And remind yourself that you can get through this through the grounding and other techniques we've mentioned, in empowering yourself so that you can manage the harassment and dismiss some of that. But know that if you're surrounding yourself with others that are dismissing your story or your pain, then find contacts and circles where you can have a safe place to talk about your pain, to talk about your story. You deserve the compassion and recovery. And there is so much here in this community through targeted justice, through TI events that Tranquility has, that you can create a group yourself, or you can join one, find one in your area. Just remember, your reactions, dissociation, shame, and hypervigilance are normal. They are not abnormal. What is abnormal is the terrorizing events that you're experiencing. So nothing about your reaction means you are weak. It means your body is built to fight and to protect you. And so continue to practice these things, because as Melissa was saying, sometimes it's hard to say, I'm going to be positive today. I'm going to have this positive affirmation. I'm going to get out and do something because you're in such suffering, but do it and then continue to do it, because over time, as quantum physics says in the observation factor and method, that it will then become your reality. The positivity and the affirmations will become real, even if they don't feel it in the moment. Keep doing them.
And I think with the affirmations, you need to visualize. A visualization is a wonderful tool. You have to see yourself become that, create a scenario in your mind that supports the tangibleness of that affirmation. What would it feel like? All of the feelings and the visualization as you're saying and reciting it, amplifies it. And I think that is a very good way. Starting out, at the end of the day, then you could say, oh, I had this win. I was able to do this today, and this was good. Or recite more affirmations right as you're, about to, lay down and go to sleep. I recently, tapped into childhood nostalgia and bought an antique, or vintage Atari, console with some of the favorite games that I used to play. And that gives you that, creativity, that fun, I was like so way better at it when I was a child. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
whipping through those different levels, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even get past one. But it gives you something to focus on that
yeah.
isn't the targeting. And whether I think it's so important with the creative, either, like you said, the coloring or the painting or the drawing, self-expression and creativity is how we connect with our soul and who we are, something that we are able to, produce with our own hands, cooking, just doing something that came from you and you saw it through to the end and there it is for you, is so important. Sometimes we just don't even feel like we can do anything, but once we start, you know, tapping into that creativity, whether it be the journaling, singing along to a song you like, playing some music that you love, those type of things, dancing, biking, doing some hiking or just, a walk. I know for some of us, it's kind of intimidating to even try to, go somewhere and take a walk. But I also think that, just listening to the ocean, these all the things that can bring you some peace and some calmness. And don't forget that there's a beautiful world out there. God created such beautiful things out there. And sometimes by just going out there and observing, nature, that right there alone is very therapeutic.
I love what you're saying. The thing that I've replaced, I think it scrolled through something and I was shown what glimmers mean. And so because they're always trying to trigger us, I counter that with glimmers. And I think about the glimmer of a moment, of the sun shining, of a bird singing in the yard, very small moments, the rose that bloomed on the flower bed near my house and door. These glimmer moments will start to add up and replace the trigger negativity and balance. And it's important for our overall physical health because we do start to have a physical response to this torture if we're not countering it with our counter psychological tactics that we're mentioning.
It's very important to replace the negativity with something positive because the positive has more power. And of course, it's a higher vibration. And the goal of this program is to keep you in the lower vibrations and the lower mind, which is the fear, shame, guilt, and suffering. And so that's why I think that prayer and meditation is very important. Connecting with God, a higher power, and just that's where your healing can begin as well. So we cannot let them keep us stuck in those lower vibrations, that lower mind, where the subconscious is, just amplifying out our fears and our insecurities. And in this experience too, we get the negative thoughts like, oh, you're always going to be like this. You're never going to win or succeed. And it's all the doom and the gloom of, when you're looking too much forward ahead, and when you're looking behind, that is not good. You need to be in the present moment and speaking life over yourself, your body, and the moment in itself.
You said something really powerful that I think everyone should practice is the visualization. When you visualize something, an image, it could be a word. I use the billboard for words because when I visualize that word on the billboard, it takes front and center power of what's happening in the psychological torture scenario with this radio frequency of these auditory effects. And as you said, you could create images and moments that you want to envision to counter the negativity. There is something where we are dominant in the space of what's happening in our mind. And so by placing that visual, you can amplify your image and your word with visualization ahead of what they're doing through the V2K and the simulation. So I've found that to be super powerful. And definitely have found words and moments that I bring up that image, and they cannot, what would I say? They cannot tune out that image. It becomes the loudest thing that's happening in that moment, that imagery.
It kind of just shuts them up, doesn't it? Because it's like you cannot process this, whether it be the AI or if it's, a human interaction, they weren't expecting that response. So it's just like,
yes,
it throws them off, which is beautiful. All right. And then you have additional information here. Can you tell us what that gray rock method is?
Yes, so the gray rock is a strategy. It's about protecting yourself. And in this text here, it's talking about potentially abusive friends, families, coworkers, but the same applies to what's happening with the folks that are targeting us and assaulting, torturing. Some say handlers, the AI, and so the methodology applies here because you're still dealing with an emotional abuse, a toxic and narcissistic personality. So there's the gray method, which means withholding your reactions can put a stop to their behaviors, which we've talked about. If you show no emotion or less emotion, because sometimes it's impossible to show no emotion, feel no emotion, but practicing is key. So if you show no emotion, they won't get the thrill or enjoyment out of their harmful behavior. And so we're taking the power back through the gray method by giving them less emotion, less response to the trigger. And it's important to note, you may get upset and they may get upset when you're withholding those reactions, but you'll see over time, it actually empowers you and they stop doing those behaviors. And so there can be escalation of other tactics, but continue to practice it. It's just important, but you can go look up the gray rock method. I would suggest searching that up. It's a very deliberate act of unresponse and unengagement to what is happening to you. It's a very deliberate act of being unresponsive and unengaging to the tactic that is being played on you in that moment.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing the gray rock method, because I have not heard of that one myself. So definitely everyone check it out. Again, I think it centers on, the importance of boundaries, having those boundaries and adhering to them, because a boundary is only as good as, to you holding it, right?
Yes.
And not waffling. So, all right. And then here's some additional resources here.
Yeah, these are, again, things that have been documented from other POWs and refugees in extreme trauma scenarios, but the mind and the psychological response is absolutely the same. So these are applicable in that way. The first one by Judith Herman is Trauma and Recovery. It's a classic on sexual and political terror. The other is The Body Keeps the Score. It's on somatic impact of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
The Healing Invisible Wounds, Path to Hope and Recovery in a Violent World. Again, these are all very applicable. This specifically one talks about refugees, POWs, and the extreme trauma. So very applicable to us. And clinical guidelines for treating torture survivors. There's a victim center. Again, you have to imagine these are written for individuals maybe in a little bit of a different way, but this is very applicable to what's happening. And then absolutely the targeted justice. Couture materials are all important. Join those calls, journal, participate, and volunteer, and connect and find your community. You'll find power and strength in that.
Great listing of the resources. Thank you for sharing that. And all right, you want to speak on the reflection when expectation meets possibility. This is all
you mentioned this. Yeah, you mentioned this a minute ago. Others might remember The Secret, or others about manifesting and visualizing outcome, but they've truly measured in quantum physics. And I really I'm not a scientist, and I didn't understand quantum physics until they actually laughed at me one day and said, when you learn quantum physics, you'll know what's happening to you. But that was one of the V2K conversations. But throughout my research and other tactics, I've found and run across quantum physics. And so when I was looking up and researching things for a call, I found the observation theory, and it is truly measured And in quantum physics, the act of measurement changes what is measured, and observation is not always passive. So this Oxford study is talking about exhibiting shifting behavior based on the human expectation. And it's debatable, of course, as all things in science are, but it's about measuring and the observation and the consciousness, suggesting that reality may be more complex than we think. And for ourselves, as survivors of V2K trauma, it teaches us something about hope, which is always something I'm trying to share and advocate for myself and others. It's our attention, our belief in our healing, and the expectation of our safety, and expectation that we are not powerless. So, they are part of an internal measurement apparatus. And so as you move forward from today, anchor in what you know, allow curiosity to remain, and hold space for the possibility that our internal alignment is our body, mind, and spirit can become not passive witnesses, but active stewards of our recovery and truth. And what does all that word salad mean? It means that they have studied scientists who facilitated a test. And because that scientist had an expected outcome, the results of his test ended in that outcome. So the expectation of the observer, or you believing that you are going to get through today, you are going to get through tomorrow, you are going to survive, you are going to be healthy, you are going to make decisions that are good for you, expecting the end of this program and this torture, expecting hopefulness and positivity in your life can actually shift those outcomes. And I really believe that. And I think it's, been talked about throughout history, and you mentioned it today. So I just think we can be really active stewards of this.
Absolutely. Yes, very good information and a good reminder as well. The visualization, knowing that for me, it's like there's no other choice. I'm going to combat this. I am going to move forward. I refuse to relent and to surrender to this violation that's been done against me. I'm going to use it as a stepping stone and a catalyst to, push myself beyond limits that I even, thought that I would never ever try to achieve. I want to be able to consciously and consciously look and see the needle moving in my life, right? That I did not let this experience rob me. I'm going to finish strong. These are the things that you've got to come up with your own mantra and affirmations. Yes. and say it, and then you live and breathe it. That one thing that I always say is, reconcile your heart and finish strong, and, kiss your fear on the mouth. These are the things that, we can be our own champion. We have to embrace our healing, because you know what, and I say this, I've said it before, if it all ended tomorrow, we still have to heal. We still
Absolutely.
because we have gone through a traumatic experience. We have been subjected to violence that most would never understand, but we're trying to help educate the general public, because if something doesn't happen, if we don't spread this awareness, then it could be coming to a channel near them, right? Because more and more people are out there, and they are experiencing this and just don't know. That's why we have to be that perpetual wave of awareness, getting this information out there and what is possible, because we do this for all that are, have fallen from this torture, for those that are going through it, and for those that of the future, the children. And I think that they're starting at such a younger age on children, and doing these type of things, to kind of splinter and fragment their mind, kind of like what all Project Monarch and all of that was about, to activate them at a later time too. We know that we have experienced this, but in a lot of ways, it's the tip of the iceberg, right? So that's why we have to expose the iceberg.
I absolutely feel, and you probably heard it in my voice, I am so passionate about this. I get so broken down and torn up when I read things in the news where I believe someone succumbed to the actions and behaviors that they want. And I just think every day, if I could just influence and help one person to do no harm to themselves, to do no harm to others, it's just so important to me. And the advocacy of this is critical. And we, it is scary, but there's so much that we can control. And I just want to continue, all of us trying to be stewards for each other in this journey that we're going through. But, we need to all lean in and try to help ourselves and help others, because this is such an assault on humanity, and the children that are being harmed through direct or indirect secondhand is just created such a passion project of no harm for my cause. And I hope others will do the same, because it is quite a feat that we're up against. But we are not passive witnesses, and I really hope others will lean into that. I found such strength in thinking I could just have an impact on one other person, or certainly a group. So I hope others will do the same.
You never know who you're reaching in one day, and it could be that life or death. Just by simply sharing information. You just never know. I just put that in God's hands, that, from whatever I share, that it will land, to those who need it in that moment. And it's like tracks and, on the web and everything that someone may later on come up upon the information and they really needed, and it was very critical to them at the time.
Right.
So this is the community sharing circle.
I just opened this up. I love to hear from others. I like to live my life with a learning mindset of resources. I just want to be such a person of reaching others' experiences and learning from them. And I've learned so much from this community. And so I love to hear what others are doing on a hard day to get through it, mentally or spiritually, certainly emotionally. And are there other practices that people are finding to help support themselves and center? And that's where I love to hear from the community. I think there's some power in sharing.
And I'll bring up your email address if anyone would like to write Rose and share, their grounding and coping tools, and that would be great. So you want to go ahead and close out with, this is your final slide, and then I'm going to bring up the details for the Victory Through V2K call that you're hosting.
Yeah, I think my final thought is just to thank everyone for showing up, and how important your presence and your courage matters, and the connection that we feel. And no matter where you are in your journey, know that you're seen, and we value you, and you're not alone. We want to send each of you with love and acceptance and strength, and hold each other with light. But I just want to encourage everybody to move with love for yourself first, and then for others, and let love be your anchor and your compass as we fight through this.
Oh, that was beautifully said. And I really do love the approach that you take with visualizing a billboard with a word, or, a picture as well. That is a very good visualization tool. When you're bombarded with, the hate from this experience, and you have that billboard and you just flash the word love, unconditional love is the highest vibration, and you have to have that unconditional love for yourself. And it's so important. We can reject parts of who we are, but some of those rejected parts, are what is where our strength and our resilience is. So you have to start looking at yourself through a lens of love, that unconditional love, and embracing all parts of who you are. And, Carl Jung, he talked about, shadow work and the integration of the shadow aspects, those rejected parts of who we are. I think in this experience, especially when those rejected parts of who we are under the, up for grabs and exploitation by this program, that we really have to do that integration. and accepting all parts of who we are. We all have those, quirks and undesirable traits. I wish I had more patience at times. I get frustrated.
Yes.
I can be a perfectionist, and I get lost on trying to perfect something, and I have to catch myself and going, you know what? It's okay. The world's not going to end if it's not 100% perfect. Let's move on. Those type of things that, you deem as those undesirable parts of who you are. They're all in the mix. All parts of who you are in the mix of helping you through this targeted journey. So that's why you have to really encompass all of them in love, and just see yourself as whole and not, divided. We can't just, carve out the desirable portions and say, this is who we are. We got to embrace all aspects. Every single day, I always put my hand on my heart and I say, I am one with my higher self. I am one with my child self. Because the child, a lot of what we're navigating in, and our insecurities and our fears, and all of that, that is a huge part of it. And the other part is I am one with all parts of who I am, and I am whole and integrated. I know who I am. I am a divine sovereign being, and I claim my divine birthright, and I am one and connected with God and Holy Spirit. What you resonate with is a higher power. You have to proclaim this over yourself every single day, and when I do that, when I put my hand over my heart, sometimes my hand gets hot. And I mean, it's just like, that you're doing this for yourself, out of love and respect for yourself. I also say that I know who I am. I am a child of God. And all of God, all that God is in the light is with me in this moment. Give me the eyes to see clearly, give me the ears to hear, and give me the discernment to know only the truth of the light of God, and no distortions. No distortions. Cut through the distortions and the deceptions. Cancel those assignments and agendas that have been made against you. Declare them that they are canceled off of you, and just watch the shift happen with you. You will gain that momentum that you need. And because we're proclaiming these things over ourselves, we're disempowering and dismantling this system that is being used against us.
So beautifully said. You inspire me every day so much, Melissa, and I know you inspire so many others. I just am in awe, and it gets me through, as many others do, through those really difficult times. I just couldn't thank you enough. I can't find the right words to tell you how much inspiration I know many of us get from what you're doing and from you individually. So thank you for everything you're doing here with Chosen Heroes.
I appreciate that, and I give it all to God. God is the one that made this pathway for this podcast. I heeded the call, and everything fell into place. I give all the glory to Him, and I do this because I'm so passionate that I want everyone to be healed from this experience. Nobody deserves to be, under the will and the brunt of what this is. You are all survivors. You are all powerful. No matter what has been said and done against you, you can overcome this. It just takes, number one, a shift in mindset and belief in yourself, in seeing and visualizing yourself as that conqueror for yourself. You are your own hero, and you have the tools, and you can connect with God in a higher power and see through this. You connect in with your community that have gone through these things. You do not have to sit in silence with the suffering. There are tools and wisdom out there within, these podcasts and the calls and targeted justice, where you can arm yourself with this knowledge and defeat and debunk what is being done against you. I want to make sure that everybody has the details for the Victory Through V2K. And I don't know, and I have said it before, but this was one of the first calls last year when I started to really get back in actively into the research about targeting. Because I had kind of, put it on hold. I was still, perfecting ways that I could just, kind of motivate myself and to heal and all of that. But I was led, just by chance. I saw the advertisement for the Victory Through V2K, and I was like, oh wow, yes, I need to attend this call. And I love it. I just love, the flow of it. You have the guest and everybody having a safe space to share their experience, introduce themselves, everyone that, is going through the same, the auditory harassment that we all go. I learned something every single time that I have attended the call. So I know that Melody Hobson had originally created the call, and then you and Lindsay graciously, took over that so it could keep going, because it really is so special. There is some near and dear, people that attend the call, regularly, and new ones each time. And it's nothing like hearing somebody finally being able to express themselves and never had anyone understand what they're going through. And I just can't even express in words, that what a victory for, and that's a perfect title, for this teleconference. It really is victory through this V2K. And when is the next one? It's tomorrow, isn't it?
It is tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Every
And
2 weeks on Monday. Yeah.
every other week. And then you can get the details. It's up on the screen for the dial-in. It is a free conference call. It is global, so you can even if you're outside of the United States. It's hosted by the free conference call site. I have one of those as well, so that means anyone can attend. And it is at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time and 8:30 Central time and 9:30 Eastern time. And the access code is up there, and the ID, which is Victory Call, and access code 3237775#. And they could also just go to free conference call and enter that information to connect. But what I have done in the YouTube, the Rumble descriptions for this video today is I put all the details to that. So you can reference back to today's broadcast and get the information. The information is also on tievents.org. Tranquility post the upcoming scheduled. She's got the other, there's another call in October for this month. And so there's another resource for you too. And as I said previously, Rose has graciously accepted anyone to reach out to her about today's broadcast and the content that she covered, or if they just want to ask questions in general, by reaching out to her at pr@targetedhelpnow.org. And again, that is email pr@targetedhelpnow.org.
Wonderful.
Rose,
Thank you so much.
would you like to say any final words? I've seen a lot of activity in the chat. Thank you so much. I love seeing all of you engage with one another. That's what this chat is for. And I really appreciate you being here. And Kemp, I think you said that you may have been posting too much. Don't ever think that. This is a safe space for people to interact with one another. And as you can see, that by others who respond, there are those there that are very supportive and encouraging to others within the community.
Please continue to show up. That's what I asked, and know that you're heard and you're validated. And if you can, join the cause. It will seem hard at first if you're really in the thick of it, but you'll see it's worth it, and you'll feel better each time. And we need all the warriors we can get. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I see, hi, Craig LaForest. Thanks so much for joining in. He says, let me bring this up so you can see it, Rose. Great to hear you on here, Rose. Stay
Love Craig. Thank you, Craig from Australia. Yes. And
Craig, I would love to have you as a guest on the Chosen Heroes. You've just been such a blessing to so many and such an advocate for the Voice to Skull. And I want to bring up another one here. Sammy, don't think that you're being a pain. We understand. He's saying that he's trying to not get murdered. This experience can be extremely intimidating and fear invoking. I can't tell you, if I had $1 for every time they told me they were going to kill me, I would probably have a nice little nest egg right now. They would say, we're good, one of their favorite phrases is like, just kill the bitch. That was always a favorite, in that they were going to kill me and make it look like a suicide. And, I have the auditory effect, but the gang stalking part of it too can be very intimidating. And like Rose mentioned, if we try to focus just focus on the goal at hand, that you're going from point A to point B, and try not to be, on the constant lookout. Just try to succeed in your task, going to point A and point B, so that the grip of the connection of them and the buy-in, trying to invoke and inspire that fear toward you, can diminish. It just takes practice. Rose, would you like to add to that?
It does take practice, and just remember that it's subliminal, and people are not paid actors, but they're not a participant willingly, knowingly, and take that power back from them by not engaging and giving emotion. And I know there are moments that I have felt and will probably feel like my life will end, or I will not get through this. And I just hold on to my faith and the positivity, and surround myself and connect with others. If it's a really bad day, I pick up the phone, I find a small group and I suggest everyone do that. Some of these calls, we share phone numbers. We certainly do on the V2K. People will come on and say, here's my phone number. You can call me anytime. When you're in the thick of it, you're scared, pick up the phone and call one of those individuals. I know I've had those lifelines many times, and I always feel better. Look for the calls on TI events, join a call, listen, and then do the things that we were sharing about to make yourself feel good and feel better, even through the difficult times, and just take it moment by moment.
And to add on to that, I mean, it can be so isolating. It is very, very good to establish kind of that buddy system. That way, because sometimes when you're targeted, you really are isolated. You've had rejection from family and friends, and you're feeling very alone. So it's important to try to make those connections within the community, somebody that can, keep in contact with you regularly and check on you when they don't hear from you, make sure that you're okay. These things are very important. And everyone, situation is different. You may have some people that are more open to it in your life, but then there's nothing like, having somebody know exactly what you're going through. And again, just try. Don't be discouraged if you try to extend your hand out, to someone for support and, wanting that connection. We're all going through a gauntlet. Just remember that, if you extend your hand out to one individual to have that connection with, and it doesn't work out, just try again. Just keep trying, keep showing up, keep connecting with others, join, a different call, and engage with others, and, ask if you can direct message or share information. Again, connection is important. And, Rose, you want to add more on that one?
I know, beautifully said. It is a form of torture. Understanding what that cause does give you power back, and stop self-reflecting, and let the shame and tactics win.
Yes, because our, natural response a lot of times will be to look at, okay, well, what about me, made that person reject me or behave that way? That's why we have to stop beating ourselves up like that and seeing ourselves through a different lens. And, that's where we can regain our self-empowerment and control over this. Our control and what we have control over is how we respond to it. So we have to choose that constructive path for ourselves, because that's the path to liberation. As we continue to expose and advocate and bring global awareness to, people who are not even, understanding that this is even possible. But remember, I really do think that this moment in time, people are a little bit more open to receiving. And then there are others that would rather stay with the covers over their head, and it's too much for them to process. But again, the information was out there. Maybe they're rejective of it at this moment, but the seed is planted, and there may be something later on where that seed is activated, and they remember that information. So we will trust God to fertilize that and activate it at a later time if they're not receptive at this moment. So it's such a pleasure. Wow, what an amazing conversation. You have just brought so much wisdom and perspective and such empathy to our community, and all the efforts that you and your team are a part of in organizing the symposium for February of next year in Chicago. I'm just so impressed with all your efforts, and you are a light and a beacon for all of us, Rose. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You as well. Together we're stronger.
Absolutely. And thank you all for hanging in. I really appreciate your attendance, and it will be posted on Rumble and X and YouTube. If you didn't get to catch it from the beginning, there's so much information. I'm going to be going back myself because you really touched on some things that I wasn't aware of that are so important and so valuable for this community. And of course, Sean will be making some short videos from today's broadcast as well. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us and all the information that you've learned in your experience.
Thank you. Stay strong, everyone. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. And God bless. Have a blessed afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.